Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing great and your day has been going well. You're welcome to another episode of Thought Central with Uche. As you know, Thought Central is a program that talks about life related issues which are designed to inspire a positive change by changing the narrative from my little corner. I consider this change of narrative a process. Okay, so today I will be talking about identity. This particular topic is born out of a burden I have in my heart because I have been seeing a couple of things lately that have been giving me concerns. And I thought I should talk about this in relation to identity. Now, when I talk about identity, I hope we know that I'm not referring to position, titles, achievements, or what have you, but the fact of being who you are or what you are. I find that our actions, inactions, choices, decisions have to an extent a lot to do with our identity. And until one knows who he or she is, one will be living living another person's life or doing the things one is not supposed to do. Okay, please follow me closely. So I want to refer to the story of the prodigal son. There's something I want to bring out from there. All right, so I want to read from the book of Luke chapter 15 from verse 11. Okay, so the man had two sons. The younger son told his father, I wanted my share of my estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his field to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he returned to his father, and while he was still a long way far off, his father saw him coming. I just read Luke chapter 15 from verse 11 to 20. And it's a very familiar story for Christians. A story, the parable of the lost son, the parable of the prodigal son. And why I brought this story is because to lay a foundation for what I want to talk about today in relation to identity. Now, it's possible for us to do things, behave in a way, and live our lives in a way that we feel it's okay, not knowing there is something that is expected of us or how we are expected to behave. Now, this guy, the prodigal son, told his father to divide his estate and give him his own share before he died so that he would enjoy. So he went to a far country and squandered the money. When he started suffering, he remembered whose son he was, and that is where I want to bring attention to. He remembered whose son he was. He remembered who he was. So we do certain things forgetting who we are. People say things to us. People give us a wrong perception of who we are, and we accept it. People give us wrong and false perception about ourselves, and we accept it. We live our lives based on what people say or based on other people's perception about us. Now, some time ago, I was surfing the web and I came across something, I think on YouTube, about a guy that was an ex-gay So he said something, he is saved. He has become a born again Christian, a believer. So he said something that he was, a lot of friends, his friends told him that he looked like gay, he looked like a homosexual, and, his mannerisms and everything. And, it left him thinking if he truly was gay. And then he said he was, bold enough to ask his mother. Now, this boy is born into a Christian home. His parents are believers. His mother is a believer. So he said he asked his mom, what do you think about, me being gay? What do you think about me being a homosexual? The mother told him straight up, you have two options. You have two choices to make. Become gay, become a homosexual, and go straight to hell, or reject being gay or homosexual and you make heaven. The mother didn't sugarcoat the truth, but because he was curious, he needed to understand who he was. He wanted to understand. He didn't have a clear understanding of his identity. He didn't know who he was. So at some point, he became gay. He said, and at some point, he also became a stripper. And this is what I see some young people do and teenagers do. And I get very burdened. Like, I get very, very, very worried. A lot of things are happening in our world today. And people are going by what they're seeing. People are going by people's perception of them. People are going by the lies of the devil, forgetting who they are. So I ask a question. Do you know who you are? Where do you get your identity from? Like the prodigal son, he remembered whose son he was. And as some people behave in a manner that is not in line with who they are. Do you know who you are? Do you have issue of identity? Are you struggling with your identity? Do you really know who you are? Do you know what you are about, what your life is about? Parents, do your children know who they are? It's one thing to tell them something and it's another for you to live, in line, or your behavior or your actions, align with what you tell them you believe in. Beyond what you tell your children, parents, let them understand who they are. Let them know let them get their identity from the right source. Not the identity their friends give them, not the false identity that people around them have given to them. Do you know who you are? Do your children know who they are? Because this is everything I see. I see a lot of ladies doing some things, some young girls, and it pricks my heart. And I see them and I look at them with so much compassion because they don't know any better. Because if they do, they won't do the things they do. And I ask myself, how do people get to this point? How do children, how do young people get to this point? Because of that identity problem. And until we deal with this identity challenge, we will keep hearing things. So do you know who you are? Because when you understand who you are, you're able to even direct people aright. Do you know who you are? Who do you obey? What drives you? What makes you do the things you do? Is Christ your identity? Is it the one that drives your actions? Is it the one that drives your choices, your decisions? There is this saying that you are servant to who you obey. Who do you obey? Who drives your actions? Who do you look up to? Who is the person that makes you do the things you do? Your sibling, your peers? Or Christ? What drives your actions? As a woman, as a man, as a youth, what drives your actions? What drives your choices? What drives your decisions? People are living based on the false perception they have about themselves. God created us in his image, after his likeness. He should be the one we should get our identity from. Not from what people say about us. Not from people's perception, wrong perception about who we are. So what I want you to take out today is to ask yourself this question: who am I? Who am I? Whose am I? Who drives my actions? Who drives the choices I make every day? Whose servant am I? That way, you understand whose identity you have. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Thought Central with Uche and you find it helpful. You picked something from today's video. I'd like to read your comments and know what you think about it. And you want me to maybe talk about topics you would like me to talk about. Yes. And if you have issues with your identity, there are things that you're not so clear about yourself. I don't know it all, but I'll be glad to help you. So feel free to slide into my DM and let's talk. Bye and have a blessed day.